I'm Dr. Karan Avitsan again today with you. You can subscribe to my channel to watch new videos on beekeeping. You can also leave your questions in the comments section and I'll return them in my future videos. Today I want to talk about the European foulbrood. European foulbrood is a brood disease caused by the bacterium Melissococcus plutonius. Larvae of all ages are susceptible to infection and become infected after ingesting food contaminated with bacteria. The bacterium then multiplies in mid-gut of the larvae and competes for larva food, resulting in the larvae dying. European foulbrood is characterized by patchy brood with unkept brood cells where the dead or dying larvae appear curled upward and are brown or yellow, making the larvae appear to be molten in the cell. The incidence of European foulbrood is generally higher when the colony is under stress, which may be caused by hive movement, climatic conditions such as cool and wet weather conditions, or poor nutrition. Heavy infestation will affect a large percentage of the brood, weakening the colony over time and possibly leading to the death of the colony. Symptoms of European foulbrood can sometimes start appearing in early spring when quantity of foraging bees increases, resulting in fewer honeybees performing the nurse bee duties and feeding the developing larvae. Thus, in turn, places stress on the developing bees and the colony. Often when the ratio of nurse bees to larvae stabilizes, the symptoms can disappear. Despite this possibility of an increase in European foulbrood in early spring, the signs and symptoms of European foulbrood can be present at any time of the year. The constant threat can either be from asymptomatic infected hive or from the reinfection of hives by contaminated combs and equipment. The expression of the disease can change sporadically year to year and from season to season, depending on these factors. The European foulbrood disease cycle is as follows. Infection starts when larvae ingest the bacteria which can be present in the brood food or can be transmitted from infected nurse bees. The bacteria then multiply in the midgut of the infected larvae. The multiplying bacteria compete with the larva for food, often causing the larva to die before capping. The larvae then becomes a semi-fluid mass and changes color from a healthy pearly white to a yellow then brown color. The dead larvae slowly dry out, becoming a rubbery scale that adheres loosely to the cell. Nurse bees attempt to remove the dead or dying larvae. While removing infected larvae, the mouth parts of nurse bees become contaminated with the bacteria. European foulbrood is subsequently spread by the nurse bees to larvae while feeding. Occasionally, some infected larvae will survive infection as larvae and become adults, which spread the bacteria in the feces, further infecting the colony. As the disease weakens the colony, it may become more susceptible to robbing bees. Any robbing bees that come into contact with the European foulbrood bacterium then act as vectors, spreading the bacteria back to the robbing bees colony. In severe cases of the disease, it will lead to the death of the colony. European foulbrood is highly contagious and can remain viable for several years in honey, beeswax, and equipment. European foulbrood causes a range of symptoms. Typical symptoms include an uneven or patchy brood pattern, dead and discolored larvae in uncapped cells. In some circumstances, larvae may die after capping. Infection with European foulbrood may sometimes have a strong ammonia-like smell. Beekeepers should conduct the ropiness test on suspect cells. This will help differentiate between European foulbrood and American foulbrood, which can produce similar symptoms. The test is as follows. Identify a suitable cell showing possible European foulbrood symptoms. Push a matchstick into the infected individual in the cell. Slowly withdraw the match. If the semi-fluid remains are drawn out, but only form a short, usually less than 1.5 centimeter long thread, the disease is likely to be European foulbrood. However, if a longer ropey thread is formed, usually around 3 to 5 centimeter, it indicates the hive could be infected with American foulbrood. In advanced European foulbrood infections, cell may also be infected with Penibacillus alveoli. That is a secondary infection associated with European foulbrood. The secondary infection may also cause some extra ropiness, making European foulbrood infected brood produce a longer thread and resemble American foulbrood infected brood. In general, European foulbrood usually kills brood prior to capping, whereas American foulbrood usually kills after capping. Patchy brood with European foulbrood cells usually containing dead or discolored and twisted larvae in the uncapped cells. European foulbrood is highly contagious and can remain viable for several years in honey, beeswax, and equipment. Hives can often be infected with European foulbrood but show no visible signs. However, sudden outbreaks of European foulbrood can occur when the honeybee colony is under stress. For these reasons, prevention is the best method available in managing the spread of the disease amongst hives. As with most honeybee diseases, European foulbrood can be accidentally spread by beekeepers or through the honeybee's natural activities. Beekeepers can accidentally spread the bacteria when infected combs or hive components are placed in non-infected hives. European foulbrood can also be spread by feeding hives infected honey or pollen or by using contaminated tools and equipment. Equipment that has been used in infected hives should be considered infected and should not be used in non-infected hives until they have thoroughly cleaned to remove the bacteria. Hives can also become infected naturally if honeybees within the colony rob infected hives or by honeybees drifting from infected colonies into non-infected colonies. Honeybee stocks can also differ in susceptibility to European foulbrood, so beekeepers should replace the infected colony's queen bee with one supplied by a reputable breeder. This variation in susceptibility is due to differences in the hygienic ability of the honeybees, which influences their ability to detect, uncap, and remove the infected brood. By selecting queen bees or obtaining honeybees from hives that show this trait and other to control and manage European foulbrood, then the effects of this disease can be further reduced. In some cases, antibiotics can be used to treat infected hives. However, there are strict regulations relating to the use of antibiotics on honeybees, which must always be followed. It should also be remembered that antibiotics will only control the bacteria infecting the bees rather than bacteria on hive components, tools, or equipment, which will constantly provide a source of reinfection. While there may be at times when antibiotics treatment is a solution, this should not be seen as a one-stop solution to control European foulbrood. Always remember that antibiotic use is becoming less attractive as an option because of the possibility of contaminating the honey and the potential of developing resistant strains of European foulbrood over time. That is all for today. I hope this information was useful for you, especially for beginner beekeepers. Thanks for watching.